We all know how good Void 3.0 is this season, but there's one particular thing that's going massively overlooked. Nova Warp is actually one of the best DPS Supers in Destiny 2 right now. I bet you didn't expect me to say that. Alright, hear me out, I've done the numbers, I've botched the testing, and even blagged my clanmates to let me use it in the raid. It even puts the DPS king of the Star Eater Scales Mobius Quiver hunters under pressure, but ultimately you should be leaning on your hunter brothers and sisters to max out this underrated super in Season of the Risen. If over 800,000 damage per super sounds good to you, then you'll want to see this. This setup once again leans into not only the ease of use aspect for gameplay at any skill level, but also the mobility aspect in terms of DPS, because even though Nova Bomb has that initial strong burst of damage, it really isn't any good for mobile boss damage phases like in the raid or even the Wellspring activity which we're starting to see in Year 5. For those of you who have ignored the ways of the Nova Warp in favour of the brute force Nova Bomb, please check that you've subscribed if you do like any of my videos, and now let's take a quick look at the basics which set the base for it being so damn good. Nova Warp is one of the slowest recharging supers in Destiny 2 with its base cooldown at around 9 minutes. On casting the super, you'll do an instant burst of damage, and then you can do up to 7 fully charged bursts or 10 smaller ones. It'll take about 15 seconds to get 7 fully charged bursts off for the duration of the super energy available. You can also do a blink teleport to move around during the Nova Warp. This will cost a small amount of energy per blink, so try not to spam it if you want to make the most out of your damage output. The fully charged bursts do the most damage, and so you'll want to maximise the usage of them. At a base level, these hit for 65,000 damage per burst on a boss. You'll also cause damage in a large radius, cleaning up anything nearby too. Including the initial burst when you cast plus the 7 fully charged bursts, you'll net just over 500,000 total damage output for the Nova Warp super. To put that into perspective, the Cataclysm Nova Bomb does just over 300,000 total, and the basic Orpheus Rigs 3-shot Hunter Tether super will do about 500,000 too. Now with the introduction of Void 3.0, you can easily increase the damage of your abilities in an instant, and to do this you'll want to use the Weaken debuff effect. This is a 15% weaken effect, and it is standard across all Void 3.0 classes. On Warlocks you can easily self-apply this a few ways, with the most common being the Child of the Old Gods aspect. Casting your Rift will create a Void Buddy, which if you then shoot a target it will jet off to them and leech their health, causing minor damage but more importantly applying the debuff for the duration they are in the weakened field. You can also use the Echo of Undermining, which will cause your Void Grenades to weaken targets. This effect won't last as long as the Old Gods, but it will still work. A weakened target will take the damage up to 75,000 per Nova Warp burst, and is absolutely the bare minimum way to use this Nova Warp from here on out. However, this season we've got our hands on the Devouring Depth Seasonal Artifact mod. This is an extremely strong mod for Void Supers this season, as it'll boost the damage of them by a whopping 30%. For a class item mod that only costs 3 energy, it's an excellent and must have pick in my opinion. Casting your Void super whilst you're critically wounded or benefiting from Devour increases your damage with that super. From the Depths is the perk that activates in the tooltip for this, and it will last for the whole duration of your super. Again, Devour is the best way to make use of this mod, and you can do this a few ways. Devour works like it always has done too. Once you have it active, any final blow will heal you instantly, increase the timer of the effect, and also grant you grenade energy. The Feed the Void aspect will grant Devour on any ability final blow, and is probably the most common way you've been used to using Devour, especially before Void 3.0 was a thing. Yet we can activate Devour a few more ways now with the new Echo of Starvation fragment, which will grant Devour on collecting an Orb of Power. Remember, this season the Orbs of Power creation has changed, so to create them for yourself you'll have to use the new Helmet Siphon Armor mods. The Harmonic Siphon will let you create them easily on rapid final blows using a weapon elemental damage type matching your subclass, and with weapons like the Funnel Web combined with Volatile Flow being insanely powerful and popular this season, it's probably one of the better choices. But I think for this setup the best way to do it is to use the new Second Filaments Exotic Brute Boots. Simply casting an Empowering Rift will grant you Devour, and if you're feeding into the weakened debuff side of this setup using the Old Gods aspect, it just makes sense to me to pair these together for the synergy that they offer. Having a high recovery stat will knock down a rift recharge to way under 30 seconds, and if you're using the All Gods aspect, you can have it back near on instantly if you defeat enemies affected by it. Now, setting all of this up by applying the weaken debuff on the boss and activating your Nova Warp to trigger Devouring depths, you'll be hitting over 96,000 per burst on a boss. Including the initial burst on casting Nova Warp, you're going to be hitting for way over 760,000 per super. It really is a huge number, and for a super that you can easily set up solo without very much effort, it's absolutely going to help you melt anything from mini bosses, champions to Lucent Light Bearing Hive. However, there's more, especially if you really want to max it out. We already mentioned at the start of the video that you might want to lean on your Hunter Tether friends. Well, that's because if you use the Nova Warp super on a target that is affected by Tether, you'll automatically take advantage of the increased 30% weaken debuff the Tether offers. This overrides the All Gods 15% debuff and ultimately could knock the total damage output of a single Nova Warp super to over 880,000. You could even do this yourself, albeit for a shorter duration, by using the Tractor Cannon's 30% debuff, or if you're feeling really adventurous, the Fellwinter's Helm exotic and its Warlord's End trait. Obviously, most enemies, mini bosses and bosses all have differing damage modifiers and damage scaling, so you might not necessarily see these numbers exactly depending on what encounters or activities you're playing, but the cold hard facts remain the same. Nova Warp is arguably the best damage super available in Destiny 2 this season. No other super in the game can get close to this right now. Even the mega popular Tether falls short, as even with a similar setup it'll only hit for up towards 750,000 max. Even with Nova Warp being one of the slowest charging supers in the game, there's a few things we can do to speed that up so you can actually use its devastating power more often. Font of Wisdom will max out your super recharge rate to the equivalent of a maxed out 100 intellect stat. You'll need to create and collect void elemental wells to trigger this boosted recharge rate, which lasts for 30 seconds, so here's my favourite way to do it. You should definitely be using the Reaping Wellmaker mod. As we're set up to use rifts with the All Gods aspect, you'll be able to cast rifts constantly, and any final blow after casting a rift will create a void well. You can also use elemental armaments, especially if you're using void weapons like the funnel web, or even elemental ordnance if you're taking full advantage of the devour grenade recharge. Font of Wisdom will refresh the timer each time that you collect a well, so there's no reason not to try create as many as possible. One other tip too, if you haven't used the Nova Warp super with Astrocyte Verse and the Blink Warlock jump, you're absolutely missing out. You can cover some immense distances using the double blink jump and then the super blink, and doing this will also limit the super energy spent teleporting too, as you're mainly using your jump ability. Like I said though, this super absolutely falls in line of being able to deal with the mobility that's been added to boss encounter fights with the Witch Queen. Gone are the days of sitting in a well and face tanking damage until you melt a boss. Look at the new raid boss in the Vow of the Disciple raid. He's constantly teleporting, moving around, being a general pain in the ass. Even a good div bitch can struggle to keep on target. It's easy to whiff a Nova Bomb, Golden Gun, Thunder Crash and even Tethers, but Nova Warp allows that freedom to follow the boss and deal huge damage. Even if you get boss stomped or miss a burst, it's easy to recover, and even with 5 or 6 bursts, you're still dealing incredible damage compared to what else is currently available. Will this catch on? Maybe. It's got huge potential, so if you agree and also think it has, then please share this video with your friends, clanmates and even your own grandma. There's one other thing though before you go. We've set you up with an incredible and underrated boss melting super, but if I told you there's actually a machine gun that's also going under the radar which is silently sitting as an S tier DPS choice but nobody is using it, you wouldn't believe me. Well, click on this video to find out how right I am or not.